Part 18. Being a Bug in a Survival Game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 174. Copy on the third day. Copy time, 2000 hours. The 180th round of hunting ends. All the players who were still alive in Tongzhen Amusement City were a little surprised after seeing this different panel information. What's going on with the copy again? Sure enough, the panel refresh information has not stopped yet. The first round of hunting time has ended. Now entering a half-hour vacuum period, all players will resume their original bodies. All players are invited to gather in the main square of Tongzhen Center. Vacuum period. Sutingyu, who was hiding in the pig shed, hadn't figured out what this meant when a burst of white light suddenly emitted from his body, and his body and doll body began to separate. Sutingyu stood in the pig shed, holding the doll body in his right hand. But now all the pigs in the pig shed were missing, and even the entire pasture lost all the sounds of animals in an instant. This is very similar to the situation at the beginning. Just as Sutingyu was about to hide the doll body in the haystack, the panel popped out again. Players, please bring the doll body with you. Sutingyu glanced at it and muttered, "What if I don't? Otherwise, you will be responsible for the consequences." Tisk. Even threatened. Sutingyu always thought that she was a good, honest, and obedient child. In the orphanage, she listened to the director, and in the company, she listened to her manager, Sister Fei. Now, in the dungeon, she naturally had to listen to the panel system. Just bring it with you. Sutingyu patted the dust and hay clippings on the doll's body and slowly walked out of the pasture. Outside, the child NPCs had indeed disappeared. Where is the Tongzhen Center Plaza? Sutingyu remembered that there were many road signs in Tongzhen Amusement City, and after randomly looking for a few, he determined the location of the Tongzhen Plaza. When passing by a children's bookstore, there was no one inside. Sutingyu took a small children's skull bag, put the doll body inside, then picked up the small skull bag and continued on her way. On the way, Sutingyu met more and more players, all of whom were holding dolls and being secretive when they saw people. Some players also took a bag or something to pack the doll body. Since they didn't know what the dungeon was doing, most of the players refrained from taking action against other players and were just wary of each other. When Sutingyu finally arrived at the main square, he saw that many players had gathered here. Wanjiang's large group of people, even after the first round of hunting, there are still tens of thousands of players in the dungeon. How am I going to find Qin Chi and Fatty? Sutingyu tugged on the shoulder strap of her skull bag depressedly. Wow, there are two players fighting over there. Where is it? Sutingyu's curiosity was also aroused. Could it be that those two players are enemies? Or ended Liang Zi in the first round? Now we are so lucky again? Sutingyu also followed some melon-eating players to watch the fun. But when Sutingyu saw the appearance of one of the players fighting, he was suddenly dumbfounded. The crowd of onlookers around them gave way to an open space, where two men, without using any props, were attacking each other with bare hands, punching and kicking. There was even a fierce look in his eyes, as if he was determined to kill the other person. Should I throw it away, Qin Chi? At this time, an exclamation came from the crowd of onlookers. One of them looked slightly startled and turned his head subconsciously, trying to find the owner of that voice. But another man wearing black sunglasses seized this gap, suddenly approached, spun around and kicked out. Being a Bug in a Survival Game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 175. The raid came too suddenly. The players who were watching all thought that Qin Chi was going to take this kick hard. A shoe flew out of the crowd like a small cannonball, hitting the man wearing sunglasses in the face. The flying shoes made the man hesitate for a moment. To avoid? Let's continue. Qin Chi was not completely distracted. When he noticed the man's surprise attack, he quickly retreated. Seeing this, the man took advantage of the situation and took a few steps back to avoid the flying shoes. At this time, a gap appeared in the circle of people. The players on both sides took a few steps back. Sutinyu jumped out with one foot. The other foot was placed on the edge of the knee, not on the ground. It was only wearing a sock, but the shoes were missing. Why did these shoes fly out? It's really troublesome. Sutinyu muttered lowly, but all the players around him heard it. Especially the players who were next to Sutinyu before heard this, and the corners of their mouths twitched. Could it be that what I just saw the female player doing, taking off her shoes and throwing them away in one go, was all fake? Is there something wrong with their eyes? Sutinyu jumped to the side of the shoes she threw out, stretched out her feet, and put the shoes on. Immediately, Sutinyu jumped up to Qin-Chi, raised her fair little face, and said with a smile, "Qin-Chi, I finally found you." Qin-Chi looked at the girl, his eyes flickered slightly, and it was rare that he didn't respond immediately. At this time, Sutinyu had already turned his head and did not notice Qin-Chi's strange behavior. Sutinyu stretched out her little finger and pointed at the man wearing sunglasses opposite him. "Who is this man? Why are you guys fighting?" "Qin-Chi, it's okay." Sutinyu turned her head in confusion and took a look at Qin-Chi's face. "This doesn't feel like anything is okay." The man opposite made an unclear mockery and looked at Qin-Chi. "It's not something that can't be said. Isn't it just that I lost an ear?" Hearing this, Qin-Chi's eyes darkened. "You'd better be careful. Don't let me find a chance." "Okay, I don't have time to play with the child all the time." The man tugged on the white glove on his right hand and said in a casual and disdainful tone, "If you want to fight, come now." As he said that, he raised his right hand and faced Qin-Chi. He stretched out two index fingers and middle fingers together in the direction, and even hooked them twice, which was completely provocative. Judging from his appearance and temperament, the man should be a few years older than Qin-Chi, but definitely no more than 7 or 8 years old, but now he has the attitude of a mature and steady elder. It was obvious that he was disdainful, and even more irritated Qin-Chi. Qin-Chi's hand hanging by his side quietly clenched into a fist, and there was an undercurrent deep in his eyes. Sutinyu paid attention to Qin-Chi's every move. "If you do." She secretly took off her shoes. Just when the situation became tense for a time. "Boss, I'm back, huh?" "Boss? Brother Qin? You are here too?" A plump figure ran over, holding a big bag in his hand. With a glance, he immediately saw the three most conspicuous people present. The fat man just had a smile on his face, and then suddenly realized, something seemed wrong in the atmosphere. What's going on? What happened?" The fat man walked among the three of them and looked left and right. He always felt that there was a slight smell of gunpowder in the air. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuan-K. Chapter 176. Fat man, do you know him? Sutinyu was the first to ask. Yes, this is what my boss said in the hospital before. After the fat man finished speaking, he turned to look at the man and smiled naively. Boss, these two are my friends. Boring. The man glanced at the fat man, then looked at Qin-Chi and Sutinyu, uttered the word coldly, and turned away as if disappointed. Boss, where are you going? The fat man held a slightly bulging bag and carried a small skull bag on his back. His eyes were blank, and he turned to look at Sutinyu and Qin-Chi and said, Boss, brother Qin, let me go see how the boss is doing first. After saying that, the fat man chased the person with all his might. Seeing this, Sutinyu tugged at the corner of Qin-Chi's clothes. Let's go take a look too. After pulling it for a while, the person was still standing in place, showing no signs of moving, and looking reluctant. Sutinyu had no choice but to drag him along and follow the fat man together. Following along, Sutinyu found that many players had also had disputes among themselves. But they all have one thing in common. None of the players used external forces other than physical strength, such as game props. There was also a black bag hanging on the side of Qin-Chi's waist. It was a little bulging. Sutinyu knew that Qin-Chi's doll body should be contained here. But Qin-Chi, what is your doll body? Sutinyu leaned close to Qin-Chi's ear and asked in a low voice. Qin-Chi pursed his lower lip, panda. Hearing this, Sutinyu blinked his big eyes. Wow! Qin-Chi transformed into a panda. It must be very cute. I really want to see it. Qin-Chi glanced at Sutinyu and said, there's nothing interesting to see. Huh? What's wrong? Sutinyu tilted his head. It's okay, Qin-Chi replied dully. He didn't want to tell Dayu that he had lost an ear. Sutinyu looked forward and saw the fat man and the man sitting on the steps under the shade of a tree. Boss brother Qin, the fat man waved his hands towards the two of them. After Sutinyu and Qin-Chi came over, Fatty had noticed that there seemed to be some misunderstanding between the three of them, so he warmly invited them to sit down, hoping to ease the relationship between them. There are no other players wandering around within 100 meters, because they were all driven away by the man alone. Those who didn't want to leave would just leave after a good beating. Boss, brother Qin, let me introduce you formally. This is my boss, the leader of the Gu family in Beijing. Gu Qi, Xingju. Before the fat man finished speaking, the man suddenly spoke. The cold eyes behind his sunglasses looked directly at the two of them. Qin-Chi, Angel Su, one is the first batch of closed beta players, but he is only level 6, and the other he is the third batch of closed beta players who made Li Ji flee in embarrassment, and he is considered a new player. Sutinyu looked at Fatty suspiciously. The fat man whispered, I only told you which batch you are from. The implication is that Gu Qi collected other information about the two of them through his own means. There was nothing wrong with Sutinyu's introduction, but Qin-Chi's last sentence, no matter how you heard it, it felt like it was aimed at ridicule. What kind of conflict did these two people have with each other? Now that the distance between the four of them is within 2 meters, Sutinyu can also check Gu Qi's game nickname. Ah! Oh haha! It was the player who rushed hard in the 67th round. Wait a minute. If Sutinyu remembered correctly, it seemed that he only saw Qin-Chi on the list in the 99th round. In other words, Qin-Chi was a hunter player in the 99th round, and he was just a doll body before. Is it possible that Gu Qi, a hunter player in the 67th round, met Qin-Chi, who was still a prey player at that time? It was at that time that the two of them. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 177. As soon as his thoughts spread out, Sutinyu felt more and more that he might have spied some kind of truth. Fat man, how did you meet your boss? Sutinyu quietly stayed away from the two people and ran to the fat man's side. So, Fatty almost got killed by a hunter player, but was rescued from dire straits by the boss who descended from heaven at the critical moment. Finally, he hid in the same place with Gu Qi, and spent the remaining hunting time of the first round peacefully. Oh, that's it? Sutinyu believed what the fat man said was that Gu Qi had saved him, but God came down to earth. No matter how you look at it, Gu Qi doesn't look like a kind person who would be kind enough to save people from the beginning. He probably wants to catch them all in one go. It will be bigger. However, because Fatty was his dedicated employee in reality, he was able to stop in the end and not kill Fatty to gain points, which also shows that Gu Qi had certain principles. By the way, boss, my boss has created an alliance in the game. The name of the alliance is Seeing. Among all alliances, the comprehensive data of all aspects is conservatively estimated to rank in the top 5 or even the top 3. Do you want us to join? Can you lean against a big tree to enjoy the shade? The fat man threw out such a message. Torture, Sutinyu tilted his head slightly. When Sutinyu browsed the rankings before, he had seen the name of this alliance on the list. Indeed, the ranking data in all aspects were very high, and some even surpassed Miracle Red. Unexpectedly, they met the person in charge of seeing, and in reality, he was Fatty's boss. Do not add. Qin-Chi suddenly spoke up. The four of them were not far away, and the fat man didn't deliberately lower his voice. Qin-Chi could hear it and rejected the fat man's proposal without thinking. Hakuchi tilted his head, with a trace of ridicule at the corner of his mouth. Just you. You are a little brat. Even if you want to increase the punishment will not be taken. Seeing? Is it very strong? I'm afraid it's an inferior organization. Qin-Chi's eyes were slightly cold. Sutinyu and Fatty, who were watching, looked at each other silently. Sutinyu, is your boss expensive this year? Fatty, I think I am 26 this year, and I haven't celebrated my birthday yet. Sutinyu, good guy, he is only 4 years older than Qin-Chi, and he can still pretend. Fatty, what happened? Why do the boss and brother Qin seem to dislike each other? Sutinyu, be more confident and remove the image. They just don't like each other. Fatty. The two of them kept making eye contact, neither daring to say a word at this time. It felt like I accidentally ignited another powder keg. Fortunately, the two only had a few verbal quarrels and did not fight again. Seeing that both of them had nothing to say, the fat man dragged over the large bag of things he had brought before. Once opened, it is full of food or drink. Come and have a try, these are delicious. The fat man greeted the three of them and took the initiative to share the food. Although the four people all have food and water in their inventory, they will be more needed in the next game, so they won't consume it now if they can. Moreover, the food and water prepared in the inventory are only for filling the stomach and replenishing water. In terms of taste and texture, they are definitely not as good as the food and drinks carefully collected by the fat man. And while the three of them were dining, the panel popped out. Countdown to vacuum period, 15 minutes left. The following changes will be made to the second round of hunting, please be prepared. Second round hunting point system, 1 doll body, 20 points. After the start of the second round, all players' doll body hiding spots in the first round will be exposed. For details, please click on the map. Players are asked to work hard to find new hiding spots. Hey, the biggest male lead in this article is here. Welcome. Fatty, I was the first to appear and I wasn't the second male lead. I'm the clown myself. Li Ji, shall I go? Gucci, ha. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 178. As soon as the two changed rules came out, there was an uproar. The players in the square were not only yellow people or Chinese people. Sutinyu could see the faces of many foreigners, both black and white. Therefore, in just a few seconds, Sutinyu heard players greeting the dungeon with affectionate words in various languages. No wonder we were asked to bring the doll body. Sutinyu sighed. There were some players who came empty-handed in the main square. They must have deliberately ignored the advice of the panel system and insisted on leaving the doll bodies where they were. After the second round begins, just like the beginning, there is 10 minutes of preparation time to hide the doll body. And those players who don't carry the doll body with them have to go back to get the doll body and then find a new hiding spot, which is a waste of time. At this time, hundreds of male players entered within a radius of 100 meters. Each of them was tall and had a calm and restrained aura. They were very difficult to mess with at first glance, and they seemed to be in the same group. After the group came over, they stopped 10 meters away, and one of the men came over. The man was probably in his 30s, wearing a black suit and leather shoes. He was well dressed and elegant. He also wore a pair of white gloves on his hands. When the fat man saw the man's face clearly, his eyes widened in surprise. Chi special assistant. The man paused slightly and glanced at the fat man, with a trace of surprise in his eyes. He nodded slightly to the fat man, then came to Gucci and bowed slightly. Master, we are all gathered together. Including me, there are 148 people in total. 2 members passed the first round, and 3 members were eliminated. Yaguchi was playing with his white-gloved fingers and responded casually. The man turned around and looked at Sutinyu and the 2 of them, with a polite and distant smile on his face. These 2 are. The fat man came over and answered, Assistant Chi, this is my friend. Hello. After hearing this, the man placed one hand in front of him, bowed slightly, and saluted like a gentleman. Hello. Sutinyu also smiled. Taking advantage of the close distance, both parties coincidentally checked their respective game nicknames. The 5 elements are short of money. Sutinyu, Tisk, this game nickname seems to be in the top 10 on the hunting list. Chinchi. A strange look flashed in Chiteo's eyes. He looked at Chinchi and then hesitantly said, Are you, the 7th young master of the Chin family? Hearing this, Chinchi looked directly at Assistant Chi. Do you know me? Assistant Chi nodded. Although I have never met the 7th young master with my own eyes, I have heard that the 7th young master has been talented since he was a child. He was spotted by the special department before he was a minor and went to study for further studies. After listening to Assistant Chi's explanation, Chinchi looked indifferent and said nothing. Seeing this, Assistant Chi didn't mind, smiled slightly and friendly, then turned back to look for Gucci. It seems that there is still something to talk about. Sutinyu and the others walked a little further away. For the second round, let's stay together. It will give us more protection. Sutinyu took a sip of the drink in his hand. The fat man scratched his head. Boss, how about we go with the boss and the others? They have more people. Sutinyu glanced at the fat man. Do you think it's possible? After saying that, he pointed in Chinchi's direction. The fat man blinked, and he looked at Chinchi, who had turned his head and didn't know where to look. Hey, this is a problem. On the other side, Assistant Chi lowered his voice. Sir, this Qin Shao was among the lists I checked before. Gucci's eyes froze and his tone was low. Are you sure? Tip for extra updates. Okay. Today, I suddenly became autistic and anxious for most of the day. I didn't type many words. I have a handicap. The amount of updates these days has been too much for me. Now I have nothing to save. I feel flustered and feel insecure. Therefore, I will not add updates in the past few days, save the manuscript, wait for recommendations, and adjust the status. I'll add more updates to you when I come to push them. Even if I don't come to push them, when I recover and have saved the manuscript, I'll give you some updates, okay? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being a Bug in a Survival Game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 179. Sutinyu rolled his eyes and saw Assistant Chi returning to the 100-person team with a piece of paper given to him by Gucci. Assistant Chi looked at the contents on the paper, as if he was assigning something. When there was only 1 minute left in the vacuum period, Assistant Chi walked towards Sutinyu and the others. Mr. Feng is Master Ju's driver. Since we met in the same dungeon, Master Ju cannot ignore his safety. And since the 2 of them are friends of Mr. Feng, Scene wants to invite them to temporarily join in this round of dungeon to pass the level together. After all the words were said, there was no leakage, and it was a sincere and enthusiastic invitation gesture. Just as Chinchi was about to refuse, Sutinyu pinched his palm beside him, and the latter said with a normal expression, If we join, what do we need to do? Assistant Chi pretended not to see Sotingyu's little movements and responded with a smile, "There is only one, just protect Master Ju." "Uh-huh." Sotingyu blinked his big eyes with a strange expression, Fatty's boss is with us." "That's right," Assistant Chi nodded, "seeing hundreds of people will also be divided into teams of 3 to 4 people according to their own hunting time, so that they can take care of each other." "Yes, but we won't do anything beyond our capabilities." Sotingyu thought about it for a few seconds and nodded in agreement. The fat man beside him breathed a sigh of relief, and then looked a little excited. Coupled with the fact that the boss is protecting him, this round of dungeon is stable. Assistant Chi was not surprised that Sotingyu would say this. He still smiled and nodded, "This is natural." After Assistant Chi left, Sotingyu let go of Qin Chi's palm. Before Qin Chi could speak, Sotingyu blinked her big eyes and explained, "There are many people, and as the fat man said, it's easy to enjoy the shade with your back against a big tree. Don't worry about it. You two don't know each other if you don't fight, okay?" After saying that, he reached out and poked Qin Chi's arm. "No worries." Qin Chi lowered his head and said in a low voice. Sotingyu blinked. "Why don't I believe it?" However, Qin Chi is able to relax now, and he must have thought clearly about the stakes. There were only 3 of them, and it would be a big disadvantage for them to openly oppose or even become enemies with a powerful alliance leader in the dungeon. Besides, Gucci is still Fatty's boss in reality. If the two sides were to enmity, it would be difficult for Fatty to be a good person if he was caught in the middle. "This is just a dungeon, just be patient and it will be over," Sotingyu continued to explain Qin Chi. In fact, Sotingyu was also fascinated. Logically speaking, with Qin Chi's character, he shouldn't be able to annoy someone so easily and still be brooding about it afterwards, right? Moreover, why does Qin Chi's current state feel a bit like the naive Qin Chi in reality? Yes. Sotingyu suddenly remembered that in reality, Qin Chi's injuries were not healed yet, and some of the defects would definitely be repaired, which was why his brain was a little unclear now. Can't he turn a corner? Happy Children's Day players, please note that the vacuum period is over. Please find a new hiding spot within 10 minutes of preparation. I wish you all good luck. Good luck, your mother. After the panel popped up, announcing that the second round of hunting was about to begin, some players still felt resentful and directly greeted them. "Let's go." Gucci stood up, glanced at Sotingyu and the others, and walked out of the square, while the hundreds of people who were punished also set off. Seeing this, Sotingyu and the others followed. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 180. Gucci led the 3 of them to a large shopping mall. After going straight to the basement, he fumbled on a wall for a few seconds. He seemed to have pressed some switch, and a small secret door opened. After entering, there is a secret room inside, but there is a secret vent to the outside. As long as there are not many people, normal oxygen supply is no problem. "Boss, how did you find another secret room?" Fatty asked in surprise. As soon as the fat man said this, Sotingyu raised his eyebrows slightly. Again. Could it be that in the first round, Gucci found other hiding spots similar to this secret room? Sotingyu and Qin Chi were both a little curious, especially the latter. He had not forgotten how Gucci discovered his hiding spot before. It's a bit like a prophetic vision. A professional talent is nothing to mention. Gucci found a relatively clean place and sat down against the wall. In the childlike amusement city, there are many hidden secret rooms specially set up for this kind of dungeon. Players who can find them, basically, you can sit back and relax for one round. Sotingyu and the other 3 also found a place to sit down. "Gucci, tell me the number." "I am 6666. Sotingyu, 4444. Fatty, 2222. Qin Chi, 9999. After everyone finished talking, Gucci added, the members of Seeing will wear purple earrings in their left ears, and a black ring on the tail finger of their left hand. When they are in doll form, they will have a black belt tied around their bodies. The above are the characteristics of Seeing members. In Seeing, members cannot kill each other. Since you have joined temporarily, you must abide by the rules. Okay, boss. No problem. Gucci glanced at Qin-Chi, who was the only one who remained silent, and said, "Of course, the other members of Seeing will not do anything to you." Happy Children's Day players, please note that the preparation time has ended and the second round has officially begun. The 181st round of hunting time, 2000 hours minus 2020. Hunter players in round 181, doll broach numbers from 1 to 100. Second round hunting point system, 1 doll body, 20 points. The last hiding spot of the surviving player's doll body in the first round map. After the panel pops up, the stationary copy time continues to operate. A burst of white light emitted from the 4 people at the same time. When the white light dissipated, the person disappeared. There was movement in the 4 bags I carried with me. 1, 2, 4 doll bodies crawled out of the bag. Cat doll Sutingyu. Fatty duck doll. Panda doll Qin-Chi. Rabbit doll Gookie. Among them, rabbits and pandas are the largest, followed by cats, and finally ducks. The 4 dolls looked at each other, suddenly feeling like they were at a large social death scene. Brother Qin? Why are you missing an ear? The first thing Fatty looked at was Qin-Chi's doll body. To be honest, he also expected what kind of doll Qin-Chi would be. As a result, I saw that the red panda was missing one of its left ears. The red panda's only right ear moved slightly. Seeing everyone looking over, he hurriedly raised his hand to cover the place where his left ear was. His little body curled up into a ball and moved towards the corner, without saying anything. His expression seemed a little aggrieved. "I did it," Gucci, the culprit, admitted without any guilt. 10. The red panda's fur instantly exploded, its little fists clenched, and it glared at Gucci with a ferocious expression. It felt like it would jump up and hit the rabbit on the other side in the next second. Ahem. Sutingyu trotted over and hugged the little panda gently. She knew that Qin-Chi was a little silly from time to time, so she comforted him. It's okay, he's very cute now." The red panda rubbed the place where its left ear used to be and retorted depressingly, "I don't want to be cute. Even without its ears, the red panda is incomplete." Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuan-Ke. Chapter 181. Okay, we don't want to be cute. What else could Sutingyu do? He could only continue to coax. By the way, let's see what that map looks like. In order to divert Qin-Chi's attention, Sutingyu talked about the panel system. Yes, I'm quite curious." The fat man also knew that he had just been quick to talk and said something outrageous, so he actively cooperated with Sutingyu at this time. The red panda glanced at Sutingyu and then at Gucci opposite him. Gucci was already checking the information on the panel. After saying that sentence, he seemed not to be interested in what was happening here at all. Seeing this, the red panda slowly raised its head and chest, and nodded to Sutingyu. "Yeah." Sutingyu clicked on the map and found that it contained the urban traffic map of Tongzhen Amusement City, with all the shops and streets clearly marked, and there were tens of thousands of densely packed little red dots in it. These little red dots represent the last hiding spot of the doll body of the surviving player in the first round. The childlike amusement city is very large, with many buildings, and naturally there are many hiding spots where doll bodies can be hidden. But now, tens of thousands of hiding spots have been exposed, and players have to find new hiding spots, which in disguise reduces the space for players to hide and increases the difficulty of the game. By the way, when I was a hunter player in the first round, I saw 5 players fighting each other under the eyes of a child NPC. Then some taboo seemed to be triggered, and in the end they were torn apart alive by the child NPCs in the street. Piece by piece. Sutinyu thought that several other people were also going to hunt the players, so he told what he had discovered in the first round. After hearing this, the fat man was immediately overjoyed. Fortunately, I haven't killed anyone. On the other hand, Qin and Gucci both lowered their heads and started thinking almost at the same time. Should. Perhaps. 2 voices sounded at the same time. The owners of the voices were startled. After looking at each other, Qin turned his head away first. His small body subconsciously wanted to move back, but there was a wall behind him, so he could only stay in place for a few times. Give up. Gucci glanced at him, tilted his head, and said in a calm voice, "It should be another hidden rule. There can be no killing on Children's Day, or in other words, killing cannot appear in front of children's NPCs. In the beginning, the hunter player and the prey player, one is a human and the other is a doll, probably because they want to avoid being discovered by the child NPC and they are killing each other. The player's doll bodies are usually hidden in places that are hidden and difficult to detect or easily ignored. On the contrary, children will not pay too much attention to those places and will only go to busy and crowded places. Of course there are exceptions." Sutinyu stroked the red panda next to him and said, "As time goes by, other players will definitely discover this. In addition, 4 players killed by child NPCs, the explosion rate of game items should be 5. Sutinyu was very sure of this. 5 pieces, this is an opportunity. The cute rabbit also wears a half-black eye patch on its face, which makes it look a bit fierce and cute. Gucci was pondering. This can be used to obtain more game items. There is no shortage of ordinary game items, but other members of scene will be lacking. As the leader of an alliance, there are some things that have to take into consideration the interests of alliance members." Sutinyu looked at the scheming expression and clicked his tongue twice in his heart. As expected, he was worthy of being in a position of superiority, and he quickly figured out how to maximize his benefits. Sutinyu felt no burden in her heart and mourned for a second of silence for those members who were not punished. And at this moment, what Sutinyu didn't know was that someone was thinking about her fiercely. Want to find her and tear her apart. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being a Bug in a Survival Game. Author, Kuan-K. Chapter 182. Qin, are you sleepy? Without. Gucci's many calculations in his heart were interrupted by a voice. He raised his head slightly, just in time to see the red panda couldn't help but raise his hand to rub his eyes. Seeing this scene, Gucci subconsciously mocked in his heart, "Ha, he really turned into a panda." Thinking like this, Gucci was just about to say something sarcastic, but inexplicably, he remembered Chibubi's previous words. "Sir, we haven't confirmed that the 7th young master is the child from back then. If it is true, please don't make the relationship too tense." Tisk. Trouble. I thought of some past events for a while, and I felt a little irritable. However, I still didn't say that sarcastic sentence, but changed it to, "While you have time now, let's take turns to rest." Gucci spoke expressionlessly. Sutinyu blinked after hearing this. "Yes. The secret room is safer now, and there are trustworthy people around to guard it. Qin, fat man, you two go to sleep first," Sutinyu said. "Okay, boss," the fat man agreed readily. He was so sleepy that he couldn't wait to lie down and sleep. The red panda raised its head at this time, and just as it was about to grab Sutinyu with its claws, the latter slapped it back with its backhand. "Sleep." Hearing this, the red panda whose paws were padded could only curl up in a ball and start to sleep. Sutingyu touched the red panda's head. She knew what Qin-Chi wanted to say. He just wanted her to rest first. But Qin-Chi and Gu-Chi might start fighting again if she or Fatty weren't watching. Battle of the century, Panda vs Rabbit. Hiss. The picture is too beautiful to imagine. After Qin-Chi fell asleep, Sutingyu stood up and walked towards Gu-Chi. Sutingyu still remembered that Fatty said that his boss didn't like others approaching, so he stopped 2 meters away and then sat down. Gu-Chi, since this round of dungeons has started, I have always had a question. I wonder if you have noticed it. Sutingyu raised a topic. Gu-Chi looked directly at Sutingyu. Speak. At the beginning of the dungeon, the third and fourth rules mentioned, if the player's doll body is destroyed, the player will be eliminated, which sounds fine. However, we also know that after the doll body is destroyed, the player's body will appear. If the body of the prey player escapes, or like the fat man, because he does not dare to kill and lets go of the body of the prey player, then they will now. Is it still in the copy? Sutingyu said the last sentence, and her tone paused slightly. After hearing this, Gu-Chi didn't show any surprise on his face. Instead, he said in a faint tone, the punishment of death and the punishment of failure are separate. Hearing this, Sutingyu was slightly stunned for a moment, then quickly reacted. Yes. One is that there will be punishment only if the main body dies in the copy. One is that in all tasks including the death of the main body, as long as there is an error in one step, the level will be failed. The two separated. In other words, losing the doll can only be regarded as a failure to clear the level. As long as the player does not die, there will be no death penalty. However, the truth makes sense, but Sutingyu always feels a little weird, as if something is missing. In a dark and damp alley somewhere. Damn it, the doll body is gone. A male player punched the wall in front of him with an extremely angry expression on his face. Without the doll body, he has been eliminated. What's the use of labor and management staying in this copy now? The male player cursed at the wall in front of him, spouting all kinds of obscenities. At this time, at the entrance of the alley, a small rubber ball jumped in and hit the male player's feet. In anger, the male player kicked the ball away. When the male player turned his head again and wanted to continue venting, a childish voice that seemed confused and innocent suddenly sounded from behind. Uncle, my ball is missing. Do you have a doll? I would like to borrow your doll to play with. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuan-Kei. Chapter 183. The fourth day of copy. The four numbers of Sutingyu, from smallest to largest, are Fatty, Sutingyu, Gu-Chi, and Qin-Chi. On the fourth day, except for Qin-Chi, the other three people spent their hunting time on this day. Fatty is the first, and the hunting time is in the 203rd round. When it was the 203rd round, the fat man returned to his original form, and then he had a tragic expression on his face. For those who didn't know, he thought he was going to die generously. Sutingyu couldn't help but laugh and reminded, Fat man, in the dungeon rules, there is no mention of any punishment for hunters who don't hunt prey. You don't have to go either. Unexpectedly, the fat man who has always been encouraging and stubborn shook his head and refused. Boss, I also want to get some points to exchange for prizes to improve my strength. I can't keep holding you back. Fatty is a very knowledgeable person. Sutingyu and Qin-Chi regarded Fatty as friends and were willing to protect his safety in the dungeon. Fatty was very grateful to the two of them, but he knew better that just because they were friends, they couldn't blindly trouble each other. Of course, Fatty has also waited repeatedly. During the hunting time, he is the hunter player and takes the initiative. The prey player cannot directly attack him. As for when he encounters other hunting players, then he will run away immediately. With all the life-saving tools in his possession, he would not be left alone so easily. If it takes too long to catch him, it is estimated that other hunter players will give up chasing him as a hunter player without points. Sutinyu saw that the fat man was resolute, so he couldn't persuade him much. Fatty made the right choice. He tried his best to seize every opportunity to improve his strength, so that he could more calmly face various unknown copies and dangers in the future. Fat man, take this. Sutinyu took the fire beads from the decorative railing and threw them to the fat man. The fat man took it without knowing why, and when he came into contact with the bathing fire bead, his decorative bar was unlocked. This is a decorative prop. You put it in the decorative column. You don't need to take it out. You can use its function with just a thought. Sutinyu explained the use of the bathing fire bead. This fire bead is not an aggressive prop. You can't hug someone when your whole body is on fire, right? It would be better if she just slapped a brick away. Therefore, this thing is of little use to Sutinyu. It might as well give Fatty an extra way to save his life and defeat the enemy. Thank you, boss. After reading the information about the Yunhuo bead, Fatty's eyes lit up and he quickly put the Yunhuo bead into the decorative column. Gucci opened the secret door of the secret room and let the fat man out. 20 minutes later, when the 203rd round of hunting time ended, Fatty's duck doll made some movement. The fat man came back, his expression was a little excited, and he couldn't wait to say, "I got 140 points this time. I met some hunter players on the way. As soon as I used the bath of fire beads, they gave up the idea of playing with me when they saw that my whole body was on fire. 140 points, corresponding to 7 doll bodies with only initial points. It's not like Fatty has never encountered dolls with extra hunting points, but those prey players are all very good. Although Fatty was lucky enough to find them, he didn't have the strength to capture them, so he could only watch his prey run away. But being able to get 140 points made Fatty very satisfied. "Boss, I will return this bathing fire bead to you," the fat man said, about to take the bathing fire bead from the decorative railing. Sutinyu stopped him and said, "You take it with you first. There will be the 3rd and 4th rounds next. The function of the bathing fire beads won't be of much help to me." "Okay then, thank you, boss." Sutinyu glanced at the time. Next, among the 4 of them, it was her turn to hunt.